Dubey sir, please introduce guest speaker.
Okay. Good morning, friends. Our speaker this morning is Dr. Pradeep Verma. I think all of us have seen him as a part of this group many times. But today, Dr. Verma is going to speak to us on a theme of Philosopher's Tribute to Krishnamurti. And he'll be reading some excerpts from a book on Science to Emancipation, Alienation and the Actuality of Enlightenment by Ravi Kaushal. I want to thank Dr. Verma for volunteering himself and agreeing to speak to this group. I'll briefly introduce Dr. Verma in case people don't know much about him. Dr. Pradeep Verma did his PhD in genetics from Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi in 1973. And Dr. Verma joined first batch of All India ARS, which is, I hope, Agricultural Research Scientists or Service. Okay. He worked on wheat and cotton. Innovative research interested him, resulting into good research publications in challenging fields in warmer areas. Dr. Verma retired as principal scientist and head IARI Wheat Research Station in Indore in 2009. His hobbies are photography, bird watching, gardening, and of course, reading and writing. With these words, I'll request Dr. Pradeep Verma to please begin his lecture. Yes, Pradeep ji.
Please unmute yourself.
Unmute. Unmute. Unmute, Pradeep ji. Yes. You are muted again. Yes.
I'm audible, sir, now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Friends, very good morning. Although this topic appears to be very complicated, using a number of not jargonistic but less known words like emancipation and all that, philosophers use it because most of the time they get words from Greek. Friends, we all are seeking something. Let us start with what is and keep watching changes in the what is. Friends, we all are seeking something or the other. We may call reality or what is. We read, listen, and discuss to satisfy and fill some emptiness in us or interact with others through our uncertainties or unchecked certainties. Today we'll know how a philosopher with good scientific background, scientific and religious background, views Krishnamurti's teachings. I was thrilled to read Dr. Roy Bhaskar and his philosophy for the present and its uncanny similarity with Krishnamurti. His words for Krishnamurti were transparent enough to show the infinite, unconditional love they were flowing from, as a fresh breeze, not knowing their own value and importance. People loved him not only as a great philosopher, but as a great human being. He was a product of East meets West, father being Indian and mother an English lady, and both theosophists. They never believed in Rudyard Kipling's ballad, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. He taught in Oxford and gave a philosophy of critical realism, a branch of philosophy that distinguishes between the real and the observable. He was invited to give the inaugural address celebrating the opening and expansion of Krishnamurti Center in Calcutta on 16th of March 2002. Born in 1944, He died in the year 2014. Before the main course, let's have some starters. As a starter, please enjoy this. Bhaskar said, the real creativity, the moment of emergence, the transcendental moments in the process of scientific discovery occurs only to the well-prepared mind. Transcendental is not something mystical. When you listen to a piece of music, then your sense of separate identity breaks down. You become one with that piece of music. I can't fully understand someone else unless I see myself in them. We actually identify transcendentally with other beings the whole time. All the time we are transcendentally. Bhaskar's words that are perfectly in tune with J. Krishnamurti statement, you are the world, and Deepak Chopra's you are the universe. I quote Bhaskar, we are all parts of a much bigger quantized field. Now we know we are globally interconnected with everything else. And if our planet is to survive, very radical changes in our material transactions with nature and with each other are essential. And my favorite slice, thus the truth of the idea that when I smile at a rose, the rose smiles back at me, lies in the fact that implicit within the rose is a consciousness which resonates or is attuned to the development of the rose quality consciousness within me. Since I am enfolded in the rose, but the rose is equally unfolded within me. So that my rose quality consciousness recognizes within the rose of my appreciation of it and reciprocally smiles back to me. Now I share with you selections from his inaugural address, speech for KFI at Calcutta. This is Bhaskar speaking. Professor Sen has asked me to say a few words before I begin my talk about my personal connection with Krishnamurti. I cannot really say very much more than anyone else knows that he was a wonderful man, charismatic, striking. I met him in Chennai and I met him in London. And even though I was very young, my father, who I should say, who was not really an orthodox theosophist, used to read Krishnamurti among many other things. So I had picked up Krishnamurti's books when I was quite young. There are so many things that I was struck by and that resonated to me as a young person. For instance, the idea that the slightest thing, anything reflected something profound. It did not matter particularly what you talked about. You did not have to talk about high philosophical topics. Sometimes you could talk about freedom, but you could also talk about anything. For there was freedom, creativity, love, beauty, intelligence in a shoelace, or in anything you will find all the mysteries of the universe unfolded. He was a truly oceanic intelligence. He was a truly oceanic intelligence, energy, love. So that is all I can say really. And I think the other thing I can say is that although this is all in honor of Krishnamurti, he really would not like me to go on honoring him. He would prefer me to say something in the spirit of him. I think our primary task is to carry on the work that he began. So what I'm going to do is give a talk in the spirit of the work of Krishnamurti on a subject which was very important to him. A talk precisely on the question of thought and the limits of thought. And I will not use, even though I know this is largely academic audience, academic jargon, I will try to talk very simply and plainly. You all know that Krishnamurti was opposed to, this is one jargonistic word I will use, heteronomy. That is anything that suppresses the creativity, the love, the unbounded energy that he really believed that human beings had. These aspects of heteronomy consisted of or were constituted by, among other things, leaders, gurus, systems, religions, orthodoxies, organizations, institutions, and thought. And it is thought that I will concentrate on. If you read Krishnamurti superficially, you might think he is against everything. Now, what about this being against everything? I am going to read you a poem from the great Sufi mystic Jalaluddin Rumi, and there is a little bit of Krishnamurti there. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Jain, not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the East or the West, not out of the ocean or up from the ground, not natural or ethereal, not composed of elements at all. I do not exist. Am not an entity in this world or the next. Did not descend from Adam or Eve or any origin story. My place is placeless, a trace of the traceless, neither body or soul. I belong to the beloved. Have seen the two worlds as one. You see, when you do all the negations, the famous, he is known for negations, negative. When you do all the negations, when you say no system, no organization, no leaders, no fixed dogma, no fixed thought, no papal thought, no priestly thought, no spiritual authorities, no fixed emotional makeup, nothing, then what do you get? When you have stripped all those things away, what do you get? It is not nothing. It is not only just nothing. When you strip away everything that we impose, everything that heteronomously we impose on human beings, we get free, creative, loving, spontaneous, energetic, intelligent, right acting human beings left to ourselves in what I would call our innermost nature. Technically, what I would call our ground state, we are free, creative, loving. We are also right acting. We will do the right thing and we will love it when we allow it. What gets in the way? This was Krishnamurti's great problem. What gets in the way? I'm going to talk about thought, how thought can get in the way. Let me give you an example. Thought, I want to say, impedes and constrains our creativity. Our creativity, our loving nature, our capacity to act right. Let us think about this. When you have a new idea that never comes from thought, it always comes from a space beyond or behind or between thought. When Newton discovered gravity, he was not thinking. It was when he was going for a walk, when he was not thinking. When he stopped thinking, of course, Newton was unique. He had done all the spade work. If you like the unknown, the unmanifest, the transcendent, the magical mystery, the boundless energy of the universe was ready there with the answer to pop into his head. But only when he let go. When he stopped thinking, could he have the idea of gravity without not thinking? No. Not thinking, unthinking, suspending thinking, allowing the move to the null space of unthought was essential to, let us say, the consummation of his thought in gravity. Actually, you can show formally that it is impossible to produce a new idea from the orthodox canons that we philosophers have regimented as inductions or deductions, nor can you deduce a new idea by dialectic, nor by the most radical algorithm. A new idea always comes from the unknown. The other day, Professor Krishna was telling that questions come from the known, but the answers come from the unknown. And it was very interesting, very pinpointing. A new idea always comes from the unknown. It always comes out of the blue. It always comes from nothing. Obviously, we will see what place thought has to play. But to be creative, just in that moment of creativity, you have to stop thinking. To let go, thought will block that creativity. Now, love. Let us talk about love. Normally, we just love. A parent will love a child, or meeting someone, you would normally think, oh, he's a lovely person. If I had 2 apples, I would give that person one if he's hungry. I would do that spontaneously. What would stop me doing that? Well, I might think, is this a good thing? Then I put a condition on my gesture. Then it will not be unconditional. I will not be giving. I will not be loving. I will be taking back by imposing that condition. My thought will impose a condition. What is she doing? What is she going to do for me? What do I get for that apple? That is not love. That is love mixed with a contract. That is love mixed with a condition. That is an exchange, a commercial transaction. We can see that love is stymied, checked, impeded by thought. If we see a little baby crawling into the water, spontaneously we rush to rescue the baby, pull it from the water. We will do that spontaneously. When we do not do it, it is when we think. When we think, oh, is this a good thing? Will I make a fool of myself? Suppose the baby was crawling here. Oh, I can't do this in a seminar, nor not in this distinguished gathering. You see, thought will get in the way of our spontaneous right action. The way thought impedes our loving, our creative, our spontaneous right acting nature, it also drains, dissipates, consumes our energy. If you can do something without thinking, what is the point of thinking? You are wasting energy, aren't you? It not only drains our energy and prevents us from doing the creative, loving, or right thing, it also sets up a repetitive pattern, a syndrome. So Krishnamurti says, and I agree, that the moment you name something, for example, just a minute, somebody's admit. Krishnamurti says, and I agree, that the moment you name something, for example, the moment you name me as an academic, that sets up an expectation in you. You cannot see the blackboard behind me, but you probably expect me to look to see if you are taking notes. It sets up that repetitive pattern of behavior. These fixed systems of thought, these syndromes of thinking, behavior, these are terrible things. Thus, if someone says Islam or names somebody as Muslim, that immediately activates, engages, puts into a state of readiness, a pattern, and that is just to name someone in a particular way. It was, I do not mean this as a criticism, it was mentioned that my parents were theosophists. That is fine, but it immediately sets up the expectation that what you are going to hear today is something close to theosophy, and that is not true. But you see, the name, the thought, the label sets up an expectation, and this too will tend to trigger and emotional response. Thinking, naming, judging impedes creativity, loving, right acting human nature. They drain our energy and they set up a repetitive pattern of behavior. They bind our energy. Really, we are bundles of energy. When you have an addiction, say an addiction to smoking, think how much energy you use in keeping that addiction going. You may have an addiction to drinking, or you may have an addiction to reading books or reading a newspaper. Consider how much energy it takes to keep it going, to keep on doing it. Every day you have to read the Kolkata Telegraph, 20 minutes or half an hour gone. In England, I know some people who read the Times. In the old days, they used to start by getting the Times ironed. The servants were supposed to iron the Times and it would come nicely ironed and stretched. For 2 solid hours, they would read it. Starting with the marriages, births and deaths and going through the sports, news and ending up at the world crisis on the back page just before the crossword. You might suppose that if we can do something with our thought, then we should. However, the extraordinary thing is that we cannot do anything by thought. Suppose I think there is a glass of water. Suppose I think now, how do I want to pick it up? Or perhaps I think now I want more than one sip. How shall I do it? At some point, I just have to do it. At some point, it just has to be spontaneous. At some point, I have to stop thinking and do it. You can think about how to do something as long as you like, but that thought will never take you to action because at some point, you just have to do it. In any action, there is that non-dual, what I would call basic spontaneous component. We cannot do anything without it. We cannot even think without it. What I am saying is that we cannot do anything by thought. Or to qualify that a little bit, by thought alone. We cannot even think by thought. How do you think? Who thinks their way into thinking? You just think. You do not. You do not do thought. You just have a thought. Where does it come from? You do not know. It just comes. Hearing, you do not think about hearing. You either hear or you do not hear. It is simple. Of course, if you do not understand, then you think. That is fine. But there must be something that you do not understand, which immediately you hear. You just perceive. Whenever we do anything in life, there must be a level at which we just do it. Moreover, at that level, when we just do it, then normally, by and large, we are doing the best thing. The right thing, spontaneously, it will be good. It will be creative. When we are doing anything creative, it has to be like that. We cannot think our way into creativity. We can prepare the ground for it, but the creativity will just occur like that. Similarly, when we think about doing something, loving, we are already taking the love away. When we are being loving, we just love. Thinking about loving is putting a condition on it. Actually, this is extraordinary. I am saying we cannot even think about thinking. We just have to think. So thinking is not something we do. Thinking is a happening within us. So what we have here is a model which Krishnamurti was very against. The model was of an ego, an I, moreover, who manipulates, controls the world. So we have the ego, the I in here, and the world out there, and the world out there includes our thought world, because when we are thinking about thought, we think that the ego, the I, the me here is manipulating and in control of my thoughts, but I am not. I do not even know who I am. Actually, the thought is happening of its own accord, so to speak. So this is why it is so important to pay attention. Now, the major thing, he comes to attention. Krishnamurti emphasize it so much. Pay attention to our thoughts. For if we do not pay attention to our thoughts and we do not understand the limits of thought itself, then we will get stuck into this ideology of thought. This model of an ego and the world, an object world to which the ego is attached, which it manipulates, exploits, interferes with, generally in the nicest way you could say, it is the model of an individual subject and an object world out there, which is a world subject to what philosophers call instrumental reasoning. That is means, ends, rationality. How will that get me this, or how will it enable me to achieve that objective? Now, Krishnamurti was entirely opposed to this. What he would say now is unthink, do not think, unthink. But how do you unthink? How do you undo this model? It is very easy. Now you are listening to me. Are you listening? Then you are not thinking, you are listening. If you are listening, you are not thinking. If you are thinking, you are not listening. You cannot do both. You cannot both listen and think. So it is very easy to listen. It is very easy to be. It is very easy to act. It is very easy to be loving. What you cannot do is simultaneously be listening and thinking. Or you cannot think about being creative and be creative. If you are loving, then you cannot be thinking about being loving. Thinking about loving is not loving, but thinking. Similarly, if you are thinking about acting right, then your intentionality is split between the thought and the action. Or consider looking. We look. When we stop looking, when we get distracted, then we have lost our focus and we think. It is well known in the Hindu spiritual traditions that there is an old puzzle that teachers of meditation used to give their pupils. They used to say, meditate. I give you 5 minutes how to meditate. Then after 3 minutes, the teacher would say, hands up those who are meditating. 50% of them would put their hands up. So you think you are meditating. Then you go out of the class. You certainly are not meditating. You cannot be meditating if you think you are meditating, or you cannot both think and meditate. The one precludes the other. Similarly, you cannot be listening to me if you think you are listening to me, or then you are thinking you are not listening. So it is not difficult to find paradigms of doing things without thought. Because we are talking, obviously we know that thought must play some role. Surely Krishnamurti must allow, or I must allow, that thought plays some role in our life. Why were we given a mind if we were not supposed to use it? Why were we given language if we were not supposed to name, classify, describe? So what role does it play? We have to ask. It was Einstein who said the world we have created today as a result of the thinking thus far has problems which cannot be solved by thinking the way we thought when we created them. Yes, indeed, but perhaps part of the problem is not just the particular thoughts we have had, but thought or discursive thought itself, or perhaps the role which we give it. For we are living in a world which is very highly intellectualist, very thought. Thought is a big part of our world. We know that thought and mind is irreducible in some way in life. It has tremendous creative power. We are living in a highly technological, technicized world of those technologies and techniques that have been produced are products of thought. There are, of course, good, beautiful technologies and bad, corrosive technologies, but both alike are the products of our thinking. And this is the point that Einstein was making. So we cannot just dismiss thought. And we know that we all think the whole time. Thoughts play some role in our life. So we have to understand this. We know that we all think directly and intuitively. We cannot help thinking. So even if you set yourself the target of not thinking, unthinking, you cannot force yourself not to think. You have to do something else. You have to listen. That is why people who meditate use a mantra. Or if they do it by visioning, they have to contemplate something. So the realm of non-dual, the realm of the spontaneous, the realm of the unthought is basic to human existence. You cannot understand, I cannot communicate with my friend Nirmalya over there unless at some point he just understands me, not thinking about it. It does not matter. He might not hear my words and say, Roy, could you repeat that? Then I would say, yes, the word is recollection. At some point, he must have directly, non dualistically, unthinkingly understood something, even to ask me what he did not understand. In the same way, no one ever does everything or anything completely wrong. We must get something right, or it would not count as an act at all. If we think about it, for anything to count as an act, it has to be describable in a certain way. So even if I make a mistake, supposing I knock this tumbler of water over and upset this chair, that would have to be something which counted as an act, insofar as I was responsible for. It would still have to be something that I did. Do you have still time, sir?
Yes, you can take as much as you want.
Oh, just a minute. For we would all agree that war is absolutely terrible. He very much talked about it. J.K. talked about war time and again. Absolutely terrible, but how is a war actually sustained? How? By the soldiers fighting at the front? So what do? They show boundless solidarity. That is a manifestation of love for each other, and they will die for their cause. They may be completely wrong-headed, but it is a manifestation of love. And war could not keep going on for a moment without the love shown by the soldiers at the front and without the support, compassion, and solidarity of their sisters, mothers, daughters back home, which sustains them. So war actually depends on love. Similarly, you could not have a robbery. A robbery could not be successful. A band of robbers would not hold together unless the robbers had solidarity. No universe, nothing, no social interaction would be possible without love. Similarly, the most routinized, repetitive systems of thought or systems of production only keep going as a result of our creativity, our creative ingenuity. Everyone knows that you cannot keep a production line going on without the people who are operating it stepping in and keeping it going. You cannot even keep a computer going or a fridge going or the electricity going without kicking it. You have to kick the fridge. Human action, spontaneous creativity, our ingenuity is necessary to sustain the most repetitive regimes. Let us see how we can get out of being stuck in this position of thinking that thought is essential. One thing you will know about Krishnamurti is that he asks us always to be watchful, to look, to listen, to notice. This is what I am saying. Now we are talking about being watchful about our thoughts, seeing what we are doing when we are thinking. When we are seeing what we are doing, when we are thinking, we are not thinking. Remember that. So you have a thought. Suppose your thought is what is happening at home, back home. Then you are immediately distracted. You are in a non-dual state. You are not understanding. You have a split intentionality. You have a divided mind. You cannot do anything about what is going on back home now. But at the same time, you cannot make the best of the situation here and now because you have lost your concentration, your focus. So what we do is we observe. You do not judge, condemn, or blame yourself. Instead, you observe what happens. There are two ways of being watchful. We can step, just a minute. There are two ways of being watchful. We can step back from the thought, or we can go into the thought. Consider stepping back. Supposing, let us take an emotional case. You are angry. What do? You are in a state of angry consciousness. You are absolutely mad. Krishnamurti tells you, watch, observe, do not judge. Do not say, I should not be mad. Do not put your thoughts and preconceived opinions in there. Just stop. Just watch. Then immediately you will find that something magical happens. You are no longer angry. You are not in angry consciousness. You are in consciousness as an observer of your angry consciousness. You are in consciousness of angry consciousness. And then, if you want to double check, you can look at your observing your angry consciousness, your consciousness of your angry consciousness. Then you will say, I'm no longer angry. Then you can, of course, step even further back, going further inwards in that direction, that dialectic. Because whatever state of consciousness you are in, you can always reflexively make it the object of your consciousness. One of the useful things about the inwards retreat from the state of mind or a feeling or anything is that once we have identified it and see it is there, once we know what it is, we can work on it. We can go into its causes. We can look at the situations under which that thought arises. But actually, there is something else, even simpler than that. Because the power of awareness, the power of attention is so great that it will even by itself tend to dissolve the problem, to untangle, unbind the problem, then dissolve the thought or emotional state you were in. Before I go into the other form of the dialect, which is rather than stepping back from going right into the thought, let us ask, if we are talking about the limits of thought, then what is thought being contrasted with? What am I contrasting thought to? I talked about spontaneity. I talked about creativity. I talked about love. But these are not philosophical categories. So what philosophically can be counterposed thought to? Firstly, consciousness. You can be conscious without thinking. A very striking, very important point comes here. You can be conscious without thinking. You can just be aware, just observe. You are still conscious, but you are not thinking. So that is the first thing. The first contrast, you have consciousness that is distinct from thought. The two are not one-to-one related. Not all consciousness is thought. This is a common mistake in Western philosophy, and indeed in the West generally. In the Indian tradition, it is much clearer because there is a conception of self, greater self, and consciousness apart from thought. And moreover, thought takes two forms. There is the intellect, which is buddhi, and there is the mind, manas. there is a second thing to which thought can be opposed. This is intuition. So we have the intuitive intellect. Actually, most of the things we do, we just do by intuition. We just know. Yesterday, I was talking to someone about love, and they were saying that within 30 seconds, you know whether you are going to love or like someone. I have found that in my experience of interviewing people for jobs, within 30 seconds or less, I know whether they are right. You just intuitively know. Intuitively, we just know how to steer our way through life. This is extraordinary. Our intuition is something that is never given credence to by our orthodox philosophy. For instance, just consider, look how many people there are on the streets of Kolkata, on the pavements. How is it that they do not bump into each other? Is that not amazing? Why are there not mere crashes, not more crashes? Why are people not bumping into each other the whole time? Intuition is guiding them. Just miraculously, when I was in Edinburgh, they set up a department of paranormal psychology. Many of my students were philosophy and psychology students who did their postgraduate dissertations in the context of a research program involving controlled experiments, which showed such amazing things as that 9 out of 10 people knew when they were being stared at from behind. How? They do not have eyes in the back of their heads, but they know. Intuitive knowing, synchronicity, telepathy, these are facts of life. In fact, when I'm talking to you and you are listening, there is no physical mechanism. You just know. So we have this sixth sense, which is intuition, and that is characteristically associated in Western physiology and psychology with the right hemisphere of the brain. Everything to do with the right brain is underplayed or devalued by our experience. It is the left brain, the masculine, the controlling, the instrumental side. It is not the intuitive side, the side that already knows. The mother will know when the child needs feeding. She just intuitively knows. As she does not think in a linear, sequential, one at a time punctiform way. She intuitively knows what is happening in the whole household. Simultaneously, actually, we all do this. Whether we are mothers, fathers, not parents at all, we do this in all aspects of our life. That is how we avoid bumping into each other on the streets of Kolkata. By holistic intuition, actually everything we do with the left brain, all our instrumental reasoning is undergirded by our intuition. So, in addition to the discursive, the thought-thinking intellect, we must allow the intuitive intellect. And Indian philosophy, you can do that because you have buddhi, and buddhi is not manas. So you can have intellect and discrimination, choice, selection. But then, of course, I'm just skipping a little bit so that it doesn't become very long. Thought can also be opposed to just seeing, just perceiving. So when I asked you to just listen, you just listened. When I asked you to look, you just looked. When you are watching television, you are just looking. Now, actually, without this seeing, it's just seeing, which is much more basic than thinking, you cannot learn anything. If I try and teach you something, if, for instance, I try and explain a proof of mathematics or logic on the blackboard, and I say P implies Q and P therefore Q. Do you understand it? How can I explain that to you? You either understand it or you don't. I can never teach anyone anything. At best, I can stimulate something within them. You see, at best, I can stimulate something within them, which will enable them to say, now I see it. That's seeing it, which will enable them to say, now I see it. That seeing it, that grasping it, that now I get it, that eureka, that is it. That does not mean that we have fully mastered it. Then we have to play with it, shape it, toy with it, appreciate what it can do and how it does. So this is some important thing. Just a minute. I have put in something. Another, I will quote a very recent theoretical physicist, a very renowned, world renowned. How he talks about awareness in his book. The book title is "Reality is Not What It Seems." Reality is not what it seems, by Carlo Rovelli. See, 2017, he writes about awareness of the limits of our knowledge is also awareness of the fact that we know what we know may turn out to be wrong. See, I'll just repeat it. Awareness of the limits of our knowledge is also awareness of the fact that what we know may turn out to be wrong or inexact. Only by keeping in mind that our beliefs may turn out to be wrong is it possible to free ourselves from wrong ideas and to learn. So, science is born from this act of humility, not trusting blindly in our past knowledge and our intuition. I'll pause here, sir, because this is all. He's fully soaked with whatever messages we got from Krishnamurti, and whatever we have. Today morning only, when I was reading about insight, a very interesting thing came to me. Insight, this I have noted just today morning. Insight, if concluded, becomes thought. You see, insight, if concluded, becomes thought, leading to mechanical action. There has to be insight to insight. This is Krishnamurti. There has to be insight to insight, which is intelligence and spontaneity. You see, that Bhaskar has covered all these things, and what we do, suppose we are working on some problem, immediately some out of blue, something strikes you, and that is an insight, of course, but in a specified field. You see, so there has to be insight, which is intelligence and spontaneity. There has to be insight to insight, which is intelligence and spontaneity. This means moment to moment awareness. We come back to the same back to awareness. So this is, I would like to pause here because it was quite a heavy, I may say. So many new words, but he's very pretty clear about it. You know, at times I went little deeper than when I was reading the same things, the same passages, listening to same videos of Krishnamurti. I was bound to some sort of circle was around me, and it was difficult for me to go out of that orbit. You see, so at least I feel a little more oxygenated when you know that there's so many people all around are saying the same thing in different words, and that is lovely. And out of love, everything comes, and that's all. So love, attention, awareness, all these things are important. And now I think we have appreciated, we know, we have understood it properly. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me chance. I tried
you.
my best, but it was difficult for me to to bring it to some limited text, because I read 3 of his books on materiality and critical realism. It was by chance that I got this inaugural address in one of these books. It's not that through this I came to these books. I had bought these books, and suddenly Krishnamurti joined me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Verma Saab. Thanks a lot. I think the truth has to be same for anybody, so it doesn't matter who writes it or experiences it. The important thing is that when Krishnaji talked, he talked about from his own experience,
Yes,
his own experience of daily living. So, it impacted a great deal when you hear Krishnamurti or read
yes,
Krishnamurti.
definitely.
So thanks a lot for introducing us to this gentleman. I had not even heard his name, so my apologies for this. Yes, we'll open it for comments now. So anybody, please just raise your hand, and whatever you have to comment on, you can do that. Just open now. Unfortunately, Harshad Bhai is not here today. Otherwise, he normally raises the first hand. Raviji, please unmute yourself, but my request would be, this is not a political forum, so it has to be restricted to only Krishnamurti's teachings. That is all. Yes, unmute yourself. Unmute.
Well,
Yes, we can hear you.
yes, sir. Uh, uh, this whole chapter is very nice. What sir has said, but there's many things involved in this discussion. But like the limit of thought, man, buddhi, and there are many things actually. So मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा कि मैं सारी चीजों को एक साथ कैसे बोलूं. So let's start with limit of thought. Okay. So Dubey sir has said that the experience of Krishnamurti. How do you know that Krishnamurti talked from the experience? So one thing is that, and another thing is limit of thought. Okay. So limit of thought, I say that. What is the limit of thought? How thought come into being? Why we are saying that it is happening to us? And limit of thought. What limit the thought cannot do? Of course, it is very much valuable in our functional life, and it has created another thing, which is the psychological world and all that, and the me in us, with which we all trying to understand. So we have one thing, man, we have one thing, buddhi, we have a chit, which is a consciousness, and the ahankar. So I think in scripture it is like that. The whole structure is man, buddhi, chit, ahankar. So the ahankar is the last thing. तो वो हालांकि बुद्धि के अंदर एक कंटेंट ऐसा जरूर आ जाता है जो कि विवेकपूर्ण होता है. मन जो है, मन में लाइक एंड डिसलाइक है, हेट्रेड है. तो मन के जो अभी क्या है कि अब क्योंकि शिक्षा भी इसी प्रकार से है, और आपका अगर आप साइकोलॉजिकल चीजों में घुसेंगे तो उसमें भी इसी प्रकार से है कि अगर आप शास्त्र की भाषा में बात करेंगे तो, और साइकोलॉजिकल फील्ड में ऐसा नहीं है कि जो क्लासेस हैं वो मैं आई थिंक आई एम आउट ऑफ द लिमिट ऑफ थॉट. ओके. So what thought cannot do in psychological terms? Ending itself. So
I think you are muted now.
So all that things, I think there's
There's some problem with his audio. We'll go to Prasad sir now. I think we lost him. Yes, sir. Unmute. Prasad Garu, yeah.
Sir, Pradeep ji has done a great service for us
Yes.
by introducing us to a new writer. I mean, a writer with whom we are not familiar.
Yes.
And he is just like Krishnamurti. That is, I mean, there is so much of correspondence between the two persons. And it is good to know that there is somebody else also, apart from Krishnamurti, who voices those sentiments and all that. To that extent, I think Pradeep ji has done a great service for all of us. And possibly, I mean, if it is not too much of a labor, if he can circulate it, this talk by by Mr. Roy, if he can do that, that will be much better also. Because even though we have understood to a great extent, but I mean, it will be a little more effective if we read it ourselves in the solitude of our rooms. Then, sir, some of the comments are so very perceptive, like reality is not what is seen. I mean, what is seen can be so deceptive and it can be so limited. And our instruments themselves are very, very weak. So, we are connected to everything else. This also is such a, I mean, basic statement of Krishnaji. That is, we are all connected. Everything is connected. Nothing is dissociated. So that is wonderful. Thank you, sir. That's enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think if Pradeep ji can send send by email to maybe Sushil ji, Sushil Jain Saab or anybody, and they can circulate it toward the participants.
Okay.
That would be a good idea. Yeah. We don't have any other people raising hands. So I think we can.
I can take one whatever little I had jotted. Limits
Okay.
of thoughts to me.
Okay.
Okay, just
Okay.
few lines.
Yes, sir.
Thoughts
Please.
are the answers of the past that may lead to desires to be fulfilled. Professor Krishna stated very convincingly, questions come from the known and answers come from the unknown. Thoughts dissipate our energies. Our mind-body complex sees, thinks, and acts for a limited time and space. But when thoughts are in coherence, they generate insight. Thought experiments led to great scientific discoveries like relativity, quantum mechanics that could be, demonstrated and used practically. Though we love knowns and give us a sense of security, but largely we are surviving in and surrounded by the unknown. What are we doing? We have discussed time which is not there. We have discussed space which is one with the time. We have discussed non-verbal through exchange of words. And emptiness in mindful conditions. So this is what this is how I take up, how this is what we do, and we can observe ourselves doing it daily. So this is what I few thoughts about limits of thought. But thoughts are important because as I said, thought experiments led to great discoveries. So, but these thoughts are not the past. These thoughts are mulling over something, where the knowledge has ended. And on that point, when you are thinking on that point, from that, a new thing comes out of that. So these are thoughts anyway, because it becomes thought within no time. You see, within no time it becomes thought. But, and then what we prepared mind is that full of thoughts. So that way it does help. Thoughts, and in fact, holistically, we cannot overrule anything. We cannot do that. We can't afford to do that. Verbally, words are there. Words come and go. That is okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Gupta, you want to say something?
Namaste to all, sir. One thing most important. One must know first what is psychological thought. Thought is necessary, but psychological thoughts are created by us. That one have to understand. Unless the psychological thoughts you can't understand, what the use of reading the Krishnamurti literature? Second thing is to say time and death, all those words he used to say. Understanding, all words must be understood by everyone. Then only we can express each and everything clearly. What is true? What is true? If there is no psychological thought, we can see the truth. That's all. Because due to psychological thought, every minute we are traveling with psychological thoughts. We are attached to that one, have to understand awareness, understanding, all those things. And first one have to know what is psychological thought is intended for a particular purpose. We are misusing the thought. That is the problem. That's why thought who created, I created, one have to know. That is understanding. Once you know you are the root cause of the thought, self-knowledge, that is self-knowledge. One must have self-knowledge. You need not go to others only. You can know by yourself only. You need not depend upon JK also. You can understand yourself. That is what JK says. Don't follow me. You understand yourself always, he says. Namaste, sir.
Namaste, namaste. Thank you. Yes, Prasad sir.
Sir, my question is, today's topic, philosophers attribute to J. Krishnamurti, a philosopher. That is Dr. Ravi's tribute to Krishnamurti, that is clear. Selections from the book, From Science to Emancipation. That
Yes.
must be the title of the book. And what is the science to emancipation? What does it mean? That is one thing. Second, alienation and the actuality of enlightenment. Alienation, what is alienation and what is this actuality of enlightenment? If Pradeep ji can throw some light on these basic, the title itself, title of the books, that will be good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Pradeep.
So, emancipation, of course, emancipation is liberation from slavery, oppression, that is emancipation. Science and philosophers both are exploring to find the truth, the reality, each one of them, all of them. In fact, all the scientists were philosophers. Most of the earlier scientists, that the base was philosophy only. Greek philosophers, you see, the number of Roman, Greek, Indian philosophers. Philosophy gave rise to science, ultimately. But all are interested to know the reality. Reality, including the reality, the observer. That is one thing. And regarding alienation, alienation is a very interesting thing. You know, we frequently say, know yourself, know yourself. What is so? We are alienated even from ourselves, our neighbors, our relations, our nature. We are alienated from nature. That's why we are destroying. We can't see. So alienation is very much there, and more so in the present generation when it is nuclear family and each person, because of getting some money or getting big packages, has become still lonely, not alone. So alienation is there. We are alienated from virtually everything. So self-centered we are. So that is alienation. And regarding enlightenment, this philosopher, he talks about that our ground state, what we talk of Satchidanand, he also strongly advocates that our ground state is love, creativity, and intelligence. That is oppressed by the forces, those oppressing forces, what he says, heteronomies, what he says. So our ground state, and my ground state is same as yours. So at the ground state, we all are one. You see, enlightenment is reaching your ground state. In a way, when JK was talking about meditation, what he was negating most of the methods of this meditation, and attention and moment to moment awareness, wherever you are, whether you are in a bus or anywhere, whether you are swimming, if you are attentive, then you are in that state, and that state ultimately takes you to the ground. Rather, the ground state reflects in this behavior, and this behavior will take you back to the ground state, which is love and love only. This is all what I have to say, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Verma sir. I think Dinesh wants to make a comment. Yes, unmute.
Are you able to hear me, sir?
Yes.
Verma ji has covered many topics and many things actually. So what we can discuss? Actually, it will take, if we really start discussing on this seriously, then it will take months, I think, for each word. Anyway, I would like to talk about this limitation of thought. Limitation of thought. Actually, what is thought, from where the thought is coming, and what is the structure of thought? Basically, either whether it is a mind or whether it is your intellect, they are just registering something with the help of words, any actual phenomena. They are just registering something. So intellect has got some limitations. Intellect can only see the things and record it, or label it, we can say. Similarly with the mind, whatever data comes to it, it senses and then it is recorded. So how do you, when you sense it, what do you mean by sense it? You sense it, you got some we can say that data, but that data has to be converted into thoughts or has to be converted into experience. Then only you can say that yes, I have experienced this thing. So intellect has got a limitation that it cannot generate insight, which Verma ji has also said. Now what is this insight basically? Insight, when comes, it comes from unknown. That also has been very clear, which has been said by Verma ji, and earlier also we talked that it comes from the unknown. Insight comes from the your inner world or inner core, or that dimension which is beyond, but it can also come from the outside. In a way, something happens which is strange, which is not there is no probability of happening it, but it happens, or a new thing just appears in front of you, or a new situation appears in front of you. Anyway, there are many types by which the insight can come to you, but how insight will be interpreted, or how it will become cognizant to you, how you will gain about it, there you have to have converted into the thoughts. It is very interesting. You will get first experience of it, and then you will have to have converted into thoughts, then only it can be useful, or useful. So we deny thoughts, we condemn thoughts, but thought is a thing. You are basically thought, content of consciousness, as JK said. Any new thing, any insight coming to you, you experience it and you have to convert it into thought. So this is very interesting. We say that insight has got nothing to do with the past, and thoughts are of the past, and insight is, but whenever insight will come, insight is a new thing, is a fresh thing, etc., we say. But whenever insight will come, it has to have reference from the past. Otherwise, you can't interpret it, or you can't sense it. So it has to have some background of the thought. So we say that in worldly terms also we get insight, but that insight, it also comes to a particular person or individual who has got some knowledge or some information of that particular field in the past. Say, we say gravitational force theory came to Newton, but in that case Newton was scientist. So it is very interesting. It will not come to any raw man who has not studied the science and all that. So any insight coming to you has to have some background of that particular which contains some knowledge of it, or information of it, or understanding, basically understanding of it. Then, and if the man has gone to the wisdom level, then that insight will come as a flash. Before that, normally we see whenever the insight comes, it comes to those only who has already worked sufficiently in that particular field. Now let us take let us consider about your spirituality. In spirituality also, when you ponder on that JK teachings again and again, you remain aware from moment to moment. And if you had gone to that stage where thought has become very very feeble, or thought has coming very what we can say, quantum of thoughts are become very less, then probably that insight may come. And it is not necessary that the thought will be completely zero. I don't think it is necessary that thought should be very zero and there should be complete silence, and then only insight will come. It is not like that. In my case, whenever I got the insights, I got many insights in many cases. I will not go into it, but those have come despite of the thoughts many times. So this depends. This depends on the individual and his what field he is working and all that. So let us go into the practical aspects also of insight and try to see what is the exact meaning of insight. Because insight can come from different directions also, or the outer world also, or any message from any strange person. Suppose you are in trouble and you don't find any answer. From nowhere, your friend, which has not contacted you for so many years, will come and give you a solution that this can be the solution for this. So that can also happen. Thank you. Right now, I would like to say this much only.
Yes, Kamlesh, you wanted to say something?
Sir, I wanted to ask Pradeep sir, can he repeat insight into insight?
Acha, okay, you have picked up that.
I have sent into your chat also.
Actually, we are complicating this word insight. Insight means the sight is very important. The sight factor, seeing factor is very important in any insight. If I can see clearly anything, that is insight. That's why Krishnamurti talked about from insight to insight, no gaps. Otherwise, usually what happens, insight may give you experience. That what even Ravi was asking this question. How do you know that JK was talking out of his experience? Experience ultimately comes out as a thought only. You see, insight means only clear seeing. And clear seeing is not as when he distinguishes between concentration and what the other word is, perception and this thing. So perception is action, that way seeing is acting. How in between, if thought is there, that can pollute that. You see. So suppose when I am listening about insight, and till today I was not clear about it. Suddenly, all my senses, all whatever little I have, it worked together and got this idea from you. I can always say it's an insight. Oh, it has solved all the problems that I was struggling with. So insight in these are my words. So insight into insight, I call it insight to understanding insight. For that, some sort of sight is required to understand insight. So insight is not a very complicated thing. So, and consciousness, you can be conscious without thinking. Another very important word, this sentence was there in this lecture. You can be conscious without thinking. Then intuitive thinking, intuitive intelligence or whatever he was. So we have made it difficult by saying that it is a very arduous thing. It only happens to only few people. It is not. It is not. The only thing, I am not seeing myself working my whole day. How do I work? When do I see? When I am dual, when I am non-dual, and whether I can be non-dual at all, and what does it mean? So I have to ask these questions to myself only. How he has talked about so much about so many things, which we are doing it daily, but oblivious of all this, that this great thing, this great natural gift is in us, which we are not, and we are in thoughts always. How to get rid of that? We are thinking most of the times, thinking about thoughts, thinking about insights. This is what I can say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
I think
we will.
Thank you, sir.
Prasad Garu has to say something. Yes, sir.
Sir, how do we know that he had that experience? That is the question. For that, I think we really don't know. I mean, because we have not observed him, but there are records of people who were there when some experiences came to Krishnaji. I mean, there are also people who felt the presence of the nameless in the room when Krishnaji was there. That is one thing. Second thing is, we can see the prolixity of his writings, his spontaneous speeches without any preparation. I mean, is it possible for anybody to control 1,000, 2,000 members of the audience without any preparation? And Krishnaji, he never knew what he was going to speak before he went onto the platform. So these things indicate to us that here is some phenomenon. it is not something usual. I mean, this is how I reacted to that question. The next question is insight into insight. Insight into insight means, I think Pradeep ji has said, that is how I understood. When insight is rendered into thought, that becomes as mechanical as any other thought. Insight loses its uniqueness when it is rendered into thought. So you require insight into insight for the insight to remain as insight. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll take the last comment from Dinesh ji. Let's make it brief, Dinesh ji. Yes, please unmute yourself.
These two questions, whether Krishnamurti was enlightened or not. We have enough talked about insight, and we have said that it is new, it is a fresh, it is a different, and it gives us some different momentum or different direction altogether. And we find in the JK literature, throughout the JK literature, which is very vast, there is a new direction or new thing always. Whenever you will read any JK topic or this thing or any lecture, you will find it some newity in it or a freshness in it. So it itself says that the man was having something different, which right now we may not be able to consider wholly in our this thing psyche. But I think it is very clear that he was having insights and he was enlightened. In my opinion, he was enlightened. Number two, when we say insight into insight, normally whenever insight comes, it is always about something, always about the object, always about the worldly things, always about your say some problem or something which is external. Now, how that insight has come? If one focuses on it, then he will get an insight that there is an energy, strange energy, which is coming and converted into thought. And beyond that also something, from where it has come. So there has to be something from where the energy is converted, which is intelligence. So if you go for insight into insight, you will find that there is a strange phenomena happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll close now. And thank you, Verma Saab, for introducing all of us to a new gentleman. And I hope we get a chance to read his books now that we know about him. And as mentioned, I think it will be nice if you could circulate his speech among the participants by email or whatever way you feel is easier. So thank you once again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next 2 Sundays, we don't have anything lined up right now. If something comes up, we'll let you know. But on 17th of September, we have Javier Rodriguez from Netherlands. He'll be talking to us. So you'll have to wait till 17th. In the meantime, if something comes, we'll let you know. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dubey. Thank you very much, Dubey.
Thank you.
Thanks to all. Please close it now.